You haven't given our king an heir for the past 3 years. You must be banished because it's against the pack law.
The royal decree burned in my hands as Marcus Aurelius, Alpha King of the Bloodstone Pack, declared me barren before the entire court. Pack law demanded an heir within 3 years of bonding, and according to his Luna, Octavia, I had failed. What none of them knew, what I clutched like a sacred secret against my racing heart, was that I carried not one but 2 heirs in my womb. Twins. A forbidden bloodline that would either save his kingdom or burn it to ash. Before we go further into this tale of betrayal and blood oaths, tell me the city you're watching from so I can send you a hug. You're going to need it. The marble floors of the Crimson Hall echoed with their laughter. Every noble wolf, every elder, every scheming courtier who had whispered behind jeweled fans about my unworthiness, they all laughed. Octavia stood beside Marcus's throne, her hand possessively on the armrest, her smile sharp as winter frost. She wore the ceremonial robes of the first Luna, blood-red silk that proclaimed her victory before a single word was spoken. I stood in the center of that glittering circle of cruelty, my simple white dress marking me as the second Luna, the lesser mate, the failure. My hands instinctively moved to my stomach, protective, secretive. 12 weeks. I was 12 weeks along, but I had told no one. How could I, when the palace healers reported directly to Octavia? When every servant, every guard, every supposed friend had chosen their side the moment Marcus took a political Luna to secure the alliance with the Silver Crest Pack. Marcus wouldn't even look at me. His jaw, carved from marble and moonlight, remained fixed forward. Those storm-gray eyes that once devoured me with passion now stared through me as if I were already a ghost. We had been fated mates, true mates, bonded by the moon goddess herself. I bore his mark on my neck, the silver scar that proclaimed our souls were intertwined. But fate, it seemed, meant nothing when weighed against power. Cassia Valentina, the High Elder Septimus, intoned from his position at the base of the throne. His voice carried the weight of centuries, of pack law older than the stone walls surrounding us. You stand accused of breaking the sacred covenant of the royal bond. 3 years have passed since Alpha King Marcus claimed you as second Luna. 3 years without producing an heir. Pack law is absolute. What say you? What could I say? That I had conceived. That would sign my death warrant. Octavia had made it clear. Any child I bore would be eliminated. She had already poisoned 3 of my meals in the first year of our bonding, only my werewolf healing keeping me alive. She wanted to be the sole mother of Marcus's heirs, the only Luna who mattered. If I revealed the twins now, she would find a way to destroy them before they ever drew breath. I spoke clearly, my voice steady despite the trembling in my limbs, that the moon goddess works in her own time. 3 years is but a moment in the span of a wolf's life. The laughter came again, cruel and cutting. Octavia's voice rose above it all, honey-sweet and poisonous. The moon goddess. Darling Cassia, perhaps the moon goddess made a mistake with you. Perhaps you were never meant to carry the Alpha King's bloodline. The insult struck deep. To suggest the moon goddess heired was blasphemy, but Octavia knew exactly how far she could push. She was untouchable, protected by her father's army and her position as First Luna. Marcus finally moved. He rose from his throne, all 6'5" of raw power and barely contained violence. My traitorous heart still leaped at the sight of him. He wore the traditional armor of the Alpha King, black steel etched with silver runes, a wolf's head crest over his heart. His dark hair, usually wild, had been tamed into submission for this formal condemnation, this public execution of everything we had been. The law is the law, Marcus said, and his voice was ice. A Luna who cannot provide an heir has no place in the royal pack. Cassia Valentina, by the power vested in me as Alpha King, and by the ancient pack law written in blood, I hereby sever our bond. The world tilted. Sever our bond. That was impossible. Fated mates couldn't be severed, not truly. The soul tie ran deeper than magic or ceremony. But even as my mind rejected his words, I felt the beginning of the ritual. 3 other alphas stepped forward. his brothers in arms, his most trusted wolves. They formed a circle around us and began the chant. The pain was immediate and absolute. It felt like hooks tearing through my chest, ripping out pieces of my soul. The mate bond, that golden thread that had connected me to Marcus since the moment our eyes met 4 years ago, began to fray. Each word of the ancient chant was a blade, each gesture from the participating alphas a twist of the knife. Collapsed to my knees. Through the agony, I heard Octavia's delighted laughter. I heard the crowd's murmurs of satisfaction. But most devastating of all, I heard nothing from Marcus. No hesitation, no regret, no pain matching my own. He stood there like a statue, allowing them to butcher our connection. Twins. I had to protect the twins. I wrapped my arms around my stomach and poured every ounce of will into shielding them from the ritual's backlash. The magic swirled around us like a tornado of silver light, trying to sever not just the bond between mates, but the bond between father and unborn children. If the ritual completed fully, Marcus would never sense them, never know they existed. Perhaps that was a blessing. The final word of the chant echoed through the crimson hall. The silver light exploded outward and then... nothing. An emptiness so profound it was almost a physical presence. The mate bond was gone. Not dormant, not sleeping, gone. I gasped for air, my vision swimming with black spots. "It is done," Septimus announced. "The bond is severed. Cassia Valentina is no longer recognized as Luna of the Bloodstone Pack." I tried to stand and failed. My legs wouldn't support me. 2 guards moved forward to haul me upright, their grips bruising even through my sleeves. Marcus still wouldn't look at me. He had returned to his throne, to Octavia's side. She leaned into him, whispering something that made his jaw tighten. Playing the devoted mate, the worthy Luna. Everything I had failed to be. "However," Septimus continued, and there was something dark in his tone that made my blood chill, "there is still the matter of punishment." "Punishment?" Croaked. "You've severed my bond, cast me out. What more is there?" Octavia stood, moving with predatory grace down the steps of the dais. She circled me slowly, a wolf examining wounded prey. "Oh, sweet Cassia, did you truly think you could fail in your duty to this pack and simply walk away? That you could waste 3 years of the Alpha King's time, 3 years that should have produced heirs, and face no consequences?" "The bond severance is the consequence," I argued. "Pack law states." "Pack law states many things," Octavia interrupted. She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, night-blooming jasmine and something darker, more predatory. "It states, for instance, that a Luna who breaks the sacred covenant may be exiled from Pack lands. Permanently." Exile. The word hung in the air like an executioner's axe. Exile didn't just mean leaving the Pack lands. It meant being cast out from all pack protection. Becoming rogue. Lone wolves rarely survived more than a few months. Without a pack bond, without the strength and support of other wolves, we became vulnerable to everything from rival packs to human hunters to simple starvation. "You can't," I breathed. "I've done nothing wrong. I simply haven't conceived yet." "Yet." Octavia's laugh was cruel. "Darling, there will be no yet. You're barren. The healers confirmed it. Your womb is as empty and useless as your position in this court." He turned to Marcus. "My king, I formally request that this failed Luna be exiled from Pack lands, effective immediately, to ensure no confusion about the line of succession once I provide you with the heirs you deserve." The room held its breath. All eyes turned to Marcus. This was his decision, his final judgment. In the silence, I found my voice, and I let it crack with all the pain and betrayal and love that still burned in my devastated chest. "Marcus," I whispered. Just his name. A prayer and a condemnation all at once. For one heartbeat his eyes met mine. Storm gray clashing with my amber gold. And in that instant I saw something flicker. Regret perhaps, or the ghost of what we had been. But then Octavia's hand touched his arm, and the moment shattered. "Exile her," Marcus decreed. his voice resonant with alpha command. The power of it rolled over the crowd, forcing heads to bow in submission. Let it be known that Kasia Valentina is no longer Pack, no longer protected under our laws. She is to be escorted to the western border and cast beyond the boundary stones. If she returns, she will be executed as a rogue threat. The crowd erupted in approval. The same nobles who had once smiled at me, who had accepted my gifts and praised my charity work in the Pack, now cheered for my destruction. Only a few faces showed discomfort. Luna Helena, the oldest female in the Pack, turned away. Young Gaius, a warrior who I had once healed after a training accident, looked stricken. But they were the minority. Octavia had spent 3 years turning the Pack against me. 3 years of subtle poison in their ears. The guards dragged me from the hall. I didn't resist. What was the point? Marcus had made his choice. He chose power over love, political alliance over fate. The mate who couldn't give him public heirs wasn't worth keeping, no matter what the moon goddess had ordained. They threw me in the holding cells beneath the palace to await the morning's exile. The stone walls wept with moisture, and the only light came from a flickering torch in the corridor. I was alone with the cold and the dark and the 2 tiny heartbeats that pulsed within me. I placed my hands on my stomach and finally let myself cry. Not for Marcus, not for the bond we'd lost, but for my children. They would grow up without a father, without a Pack, without the protection and privilege that should have been their birthright. They were the true heirs to the Bloodstone Pack throne, whether Marcus knew it or not. The firstborn children of a fated mate bond, rare, powerful, destined for greatness. And I was going to raise them alone in a world that wanted us dead. Hours passed in that cell. I dozed fitfully, my body already working overtime to nourish and protect the twins despite my own depleted state. Werewolf pregnancies were demanding, twin pregnancies even more so. I would need to find food, shelter, safety, all while being hunted as a rogue. Sound jolted me awake. Keys rattling in the lock. I tensed, expecting guards to escort me to exile, but instead a hooded figure slipped into my cell. The scent hit me first, sage and steel. Luna Helena. Quickly, the older woman hissed, pulling back her hood. Her silver hair gleamed in the torchlight, her face lined with centuries of wisdom and currently urgent concern. We don't have much time. Luna Helena. What are you? Silence, child. She pressed a small leather bag into my hands. Supplies. Enough gold to get you started, some herbs for whatever might ail you. Her knowing look made my breath catch. There are also contacts, safe houses across the territories. Places where Octavia's reach doesn't extend. You know, I whispered, that you carry the true heirs. Of course I know. Helena's smile was sad. I've been a healer for 400 years, girl. I can sense life the moment it sparks. Twin boys if my senses are correct. Strong, healthy, powerful. Everything the Bloodstone Pack needs. Twin boys. Heirs to a throne they would never claim. Why are you helping me? If Octavia finds out, let me worry about that viper. Helena's expression hardened. I've survived worse than her machinations. But you need to understand something, Kasia. Those boys you carry, they're not just Marcus's sons. They're prophesied. My blood went cold. Prophesied. Helena glanced at the cell door, then spoke quickly, urgently. 300 years ago, a seer named Julia foretold that twin sons born of a severed fated bond would bring either salvation or destruction to the Bloodstone Pack. Split from their father by treachery and lies, they will return when the false Luna's power rises, and in their choice shall the kingdom's fate reside. Everyone thought it was myth. But I remember. I was there when Julia spoke those words before she died. The weight of her revelation pressed down on me. Prophecy. My sons were part of a prophecy. I don't want them to be weapons, I said fiercely. I don't want them caught in some ancient prediction. What we want and what fate demands are rarely aligned, Helena interrupted. But you have time. Raise them well. Raise them strong. And when the moment comes, and it will come, Kasia, Let them choose their own path. She pressed something else into my hands. A small vial of silvery liquid. Moon's tears. Rare, precious, and powerful. If you're ever in mortal danger, drink this. It will amplify your wolf for 1 hour. Give you the strength of an alpha. But use it only as a last resort. The price is steep. What price? It will reveal your location to anyone bound by blood to you. That includes Marcus, despite the severed bond. The biological tie of your sons to their father will activate like a beacon. So a last resort indeed. Revealing myself to Marcus would be suicide, especially if Octavia learned of the twins. Thank you, I whispered, clutching the bag and vial. I won't forget this. Survive first. Gratitude later. Helena pulled her hood back up. One more thing. Head north, not west. They'll expect you to flee to neutral territories. Instead, go to the Frost Peak Pack. Their alpha, Titus, owes me a life debt. Tell him Helena sent you, and he'll grant you sanctuary. It's the last place anyone would look for a rogue from the Bloodstone Pack. With that cryptic advice, she slipped from the cell as silently as she'd come, leaving me with more questions than answers but, critically, with hope. Dawn came too quickly. The guards retrieved me with rough efficiency, binding my wrists with silver-lined rope that burned against my skin. They paraded me through the palace, ensuring maximum humiliation. Servants paused in their work to stare. Nobles whispered behind their hands. Children pointed. This was Octavia's final cruelty, making my exile a spectacle. Marcus wasn't there to witness it. Small mercies. But Octavia was. She stood at the palace gates, radiant in morning sunlight, playing the role of benevolent First Luna saying goodbye to a failed rival. I do hope you find peace, Cassia, she called out, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Perhaps in exile, you'll finally understand that some wolves simply aren't meant for greatness. I bit back my retort. Let her think she'd won. Let her believe I was broken and defeated. It would make her careless, and carelessness created opportunities. The journey to the western border took 3 hours on foot. The guards didn't speak to me, didn't acknowledge my requests for water or a moment's rest. They had their orders and I was no longer Pack. I was nothing. The boundary stones rose from the earth like ancient sentinels, each one carved with runes of protection and warning. Beyond them lay the unclaimed territories, the wild lands where no Pack held dominion. Rogue territory. My new home. The senior guard, a grizzled warrior named Cassius who I'd once considered a friend, unlocked my bonds. For a moment his face showed conflict. Then duty won. You have until I count to 50 to cross the boundary. After that, you're fair game for any Pack patrol. Cassius. 1. Ran. Not west as they expected but angling northwest. Using every trick I'd learned in my years of training, every skill that being second Luna had afforded me. I was fast, faster than most wolves, and fueled now by desperation and maternal instinct. 50. Cassius's voice echoed behind me, followed by the howl that signaled a rogue on Pack lands. They would chase me, ensure I truly left the territory. But I had a head start and I intended to use it. I shifted mid-stride, my body exploding into wolf form. White fur streaked with gold, built for speed and endurance. The twins made me sluggish, but adrenaline compensated. I poured on the speed, racing through forests I'd explored countless times as Marcus's mate, now fleeing through them as an exile. The pursuit lasted hours. I could hear them behind me, multiple wolves, coordinated and determined. They wanted to ensure I didn't circle back, didn't try to sneak back into Packlands. What they didn't realize was that I had no intention of ever returning. Not yet. Not until I was ready. By the time the sun reached its zenith, I'd lost them. I'd crossed 3 territorial boundaries, entered lands so wild and untamed that even rogue wolves avoided them. My lungs burned, my paws ached, and the twins were protesting the exertion with sharp pains in my abdomen. I shifted back to human form and collapsed against a tree, gasping. Helena's bag was still strapped across my chest, miraculously intact. Inside I found what she'd promised. Gold coins marked with various pack sigils, dried meat and fruit, a water skin, and several small pouches of herbs. There was also a map, hand-drawn and annotated with symbols I slowly deciphered. Safe houses. Helena had marked 17 of them between here and Frost Peak Packlands. A network of wolves loyal to the old ways. Wolves who believed in the moon goddesses will over political machinations. I wasn't completely alone. The first safe house was 2 days' journey north. 2 days of traveling through dangerous territory while pregnant and weakened from the bond severance. 2 days of vulnerability. I rested for an hour, forcing down food I didn't want but needed. The twins were already drawing heavily on my resources. I could feel them growing, demanding, vibrant with life. Twin boys, Helena had said. Sons who would either save or destroy the pack that cast us out. Right now, I couldn't think about prophecies or destinies. I could only think about survival. 1 hour became 2. Then 3 as exhaustion overwhelmed determination. I needed to sleep, truly sleep, before attempting the journey to the safe house. But sleep meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant death. Sound jerked me alert. A step. Heavy, deliberate, wrong. I was on my feet instantly, every sense screaming danger. The scent hit me a moment later. Unfamiliar wolves. Rogues. A pack of them, if the multiple scents were accurate. I'd stumbled into someone else's territory. Fatal mistake. They emerged from the trees like wraiths. 5 of them, all male, all feral-looking with matted fur and scarred skin. Rogues who'd been without pack structure so long they'd lost most of their humanity. The kind who killed first and never bothered with questions. The largest one, a brute with a burned scar covering half his face, grinned with too many teeth. Well, what do we have here? A pretty little wolf, all alone and smelling of pack. He inhaled deeply, grotesquely. Fresh exile by the scent. They usually don't survive their first day. I don't want trouble, I said, backing away slowly. My hand moved subtly toward the knife Helena had included in the supplies. I'm just passing through. Passing through. Sweetheart, this is our territory. You pass through by paying the toll. His eyes raked over me, making his meaning sickeningly clear. The others laughed, moving to flank me. Classic pack hunting formation. They'd done this before, targeted vulnerable rogues. I was just the latest victim. But I wasn't just any rogue. I was a trained Luna, educated in combat by the best warriors in the Bloodstone pack. And more than that, I was a mother. These monsters wanted to hurt me, wanted to hurt my children. That activated something primal, something that transcended my current weakened state. The first one lunged. I sidestepped, bringing the knife up in a smooth arc that opened his throat. He went down gurgling, surprise frozen on his face. The others hesitated, recalculating. I just killed their pack mate with a single strike. Maybe this wouldn't be the easy prey they'd anticipated. Get her! Garface roared. They attacked as one. I fought like a woman possessed, knife flashing, teeth bared. I took one down with a vicious kick to the knee followed by the blade between his ribs. But there were too many and I was too tired. A clawed hand raked across my shoulder, spinning me around. Another grabbed my hair, yanking me backward. This was it. This was how I died in some nameless forest, my children dying with me. Whoa. Rage exploded through me. I felt my wolf surge forward, stronger than it should be, fueled by maternal desperation and the remnants of my Luna training. I twisted in their grip, bit down on the arm holding me, tasted blood. The rogue screamed and released me. I rolled away, came up in a crouch, and made the split-second decision that would change everything. I grabbed Helena's vial of Moon's tears and drank it. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Power flooded my system like liquid lightning. My wolf exploded to the surface, but not my usual form. This was something more, something greater. I was larger, stronger, radiating alpha energy despite never being an alpha. The moon goddess's blessing, concentrated and unleashed. The remaining rogues froze, their instincts screaming at them to submit to the superior predator. But they were too far gone, too feral. They attacked anyway, which sealed their fate. I don't remember the next few minutes clearly. There was blood and violence and the savage joy of protecting my young. When rationality returned, I was standing over 3 dead rogues, my white fur stained red, my sides heaving. And I was exposed. Helena had warned me. The moon's tears would reveal my location to anyone bloodbound to me. That meant Marcus would feel the pull, would know where I was. I had minutes, maybe an hour before he came hunting. I shifted back to human form, wincing at the new injuries despite the healing already at work. I gathered Helena's pack, checked the map, and started running north again. No time to rest, no time to process what I'd just done. The clock was ticking. But Marcus didn't come. Not that day or the next. As I pushed myself mercilessly toward the first safe house, I realized why. He didn't feel the pull. The bond severance had been so complete, so thorough, that even blood recognition was severed. The twins were his by biology, but the ritual had cut even that thread. He truly had no idea they existed, no supernatural link that would alert him to their presence. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt hollow. The man I'd loved, the father of my children, was completely severed from us in every way that mattered. My sons would never know their father's love, never feel that primal bond between sire and child. Unless the prophecy was true. Unless they returned one day to claim what was rightfully theirs. The safe house, when I finally reached it, was a small cottage built into the side of a mountain, camouflaged so perfectly I nearly missed it. An elderly wolf named Livia answered my knock, took one look at me, and ushered me inside without questions. "Helena sent you," she said. Not a question, a statement. I nodded, too exhausted for words. "You're pregnant." Another statement. Another nod. Livia smiled, and it was full of knowing warmth. "Then you'll stay here until you're strong enough to continue. The next safe house is 4 days north, and you're in no condition to travel. Eat, rest, heal." For the first time since my exile, I felt safe. Livia asked no questions about my past, made no judgments about my swollen belly or my rogue status. She simply cared for me as wolves were meant to care for each other, as pack. Over the next 3 days, I regained my strength. Livia had healing skills that rivaled Helena's, and she spent hours each day monitoring the twins, ensuring the moon's tears hadn't harmed them. "Strong boys," she confirmed. "Their heartbeats are steady, their growth perfect. They'll be early, as twins often are, but healthy." "How early?" I asked, calculating timelines. 6 months instead of the usual 7 for wolf pregnancies. "You have 3.5 months to find permanent sanctuary." Livia's expression was grave. "Titus of Frost Peak will help you, but even his protection has limits. Octavia's influence spreads farther every day. She's been making alliances, promising favors. If she learns of your sons..." "She won't." I placed my hands on my growing stomach, feeling the twins kick. "I'll protect them. Whatever it takes. Even if it means facing Marcus again." The question hung in the air. Would I face him? Could I? The bond was gone, but the love. The love was complicated. He'd betrayed me, exiled me, nearly killed our children through ignorance and pride. But he'd also been my fated mate, my other half. Did I hate him? Want revenge? Or did some twisted part of me still hope he'd discover the truth and come for us? "I don't know," I admitted. "Right now, all I can think about is reaching Frost Peak before the twins are born." Livia nodded, accepting the non-answer. "Then we prepare. You'll need supplies for the journey, and I'll send word ahead to the next safe houses. The network will get you there safely." She was true to her word. When I left 3 days later, I carried enough supplies for a week, detailed maps marking safe routes, and letters of introduction to each safe house contact. The underground network of wolves loyal to Helena and the old ways was more extensive than I'd imagined. There was resistance to Octavia's rise to power, quiet but growing. The journey to Frost Peak took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of traveling through hostile territories, avoiding pack patrols and rogue attacks, pushing my body to its limits while the twins grew steadily inside me. I moved from safe house to safe house, each contact welcoming me with the same knowing looks and careful protection. News from the Bloodstone Pack filtered through the network. Octavia had announced her pregnancy, conveniently timed to erase any questions about the speed with which she'd replaced me. She was 3 months along, she claimed, with a single heir. The pack celebrated. Marcus was said to be pleased, and any memory of Cassia Valentina was being systematically erased from pack history. Let them think they'd won. Let them believe their careful plans were unfolding perfectly. Meanwhile, I carried the true heirs, the prophesied sons who would one day return. Frost Peak Pack territory was everything the Bloodstone Pack wasn't. Wild, untamed, fiercely independent. Where Marcus's pack lived in a sprawling palace complex with marble floors and silk tapestries, Titus's wolves dwelled in sturdy mountain lodges built for function over beauty. Where Bloodstone prized political alliances and courtly intrigue, Frost Peak valued strength, honor, and the old ways. I stood at the border, my hand on the boundary stone, and took a deep breath. This was it. My last chance at sanctuary. If Titus refused Helena's request, I would have nowhere left to run. Patrol found me within minutes of crossing the boundary. 3 massive wolves, their fur thick and white to blend with the mountain snow. They circled me cautiously, scenting rogue but also sensing I wasn't a threat. The largest shifted to human form, a woman with battle scars and intelligent eyes. "State your business, rogue," she demanded. "My name is Cassia Valentina. I seek audience with Alpha Titus. Luna Helena of the Bloodstone Pack sent me. She said to tell him he owes her a life debt." The warrior's eyes widened slightly. "Helena sent you." She looked me over, taking in my obvious pregnancy, my exhausted state. "Follow me. Titus will want to hear this directly." They escorted me through the mountain passes, past natural fortifications and strategic watchpoints. Frost Peak was built for war, for defense. No army could take this territory without suffering catastrophic losses. No wonder they'd remained independent despite constant pressure from larger packs. Titus's hall was a massive log structure built into the mountainside, warmed by enormous fireplaces and lit by hundreds of candles. The Alpha himself waited on a throne of carved pine, looking nothing like Marcus's refined nobility. Titus was raw power and barely civilized violence. 7 feet tall, built like he could tear down mountains with his bare hands, scarred from countless battles. His age was impossible to determine. He could be 300 or 3,000. "Cassia Valentina," he rumbled as I approached. "Helena's message arrived 3 days ago. She said you'd need sanctuary, but she didn't mention why." His eyes dropped to my stomach. Pregnant. Exiled. Running from something or someone. Why should Frost Peak risk harboring a rogue? This was the moment. I could lie, obscure the truth, beg for mercy. Or I could bet everything on honesty. "Because the children I carry are the true heirs to the Bloodstone Pack throne," I said clearly. "Twin sons, conceived with Alpha King Marcus Aurelius before he severed our fated mate bond at his political Luna's manipulation. I was exiled on false charges of barrenness, but these boys..." I placed my hands on my stomach. "These boys are prophesied. They will either save or destroy the Bloodstone Pack, and Octavia would murder them the moment she learned they existed." Silence filled the hall. Titus studied me with ancient eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. Deep, booming laughter that echoed off the wooden walls. "Prophesied twins. Course. Helena never does anything by halves." He stood, approached me, and placed one massive hand on my shoulder. "I do owe her a life debt. 400 years ago, she pulled me back from feral madness after I lost my fated mate. Without her intervention, I would have become the monster I fought so hard to suppress. So yes, Cassia Valentina, I will grant you sanctuary. You and your sons will be protected under Frostpeak law. But understand this. His grip tightened, not painfully but firmly. If those boys prove to be a threat to my pack, prophecy or no prophecy, I will end them myself. I protect my own above all else. Are we clear? Crystal clear, I agreed. 'Cause that was fair. That was honest. And honestly, that was more than I deserved after showing up on his doorstep with nothing but Helena's favor and a claim about prophecy. Good. Titus released me and turned to his assembled wolves. Kasia Valentina is under my protection. She is pack adjacent until the twins are born, at which point we will reevaluate. Anyone who harms her answers to me personally. The promise of protection from an alpha like Titus was worth more than all the gold in Marcus's treasury. I felt the first true sense of safety I'd experienced since my exile. Titus assigned me a small cabin near the main hall, staffed with healers and guards. The pregnancy progressed quickly now, the twins growing at an accelerated rate. Frost Peak's healers were fascinated and concerned in equal measure. I've never seen development this rapid, the head healer, a woman named Cornelia, admitted during one examination. They're already the size they should be at 5 months, but you're only 4 months along. And their power. She placed her hand on my stomach, her healing sense reading what lay within. Kasia, these boys radiate alpha energy. Not potential alpha energy. Actual, fully formed alpha power. They'll be born as alphas. 2 alphas. Born from a severed fated mate bond. The prophecy was already manifesting in ways none of us had anticipated. Can they survive being born early? I asked the critical question. Yes, their development is accelerated but healthy. I'd estimate you have 6 weeks, maybe 8 at most. Start preparing yourself mentally. Twin births are difficult even for werewolves. 6 weeks. 6 weeks to prepare for motherhood, for raising 2 alpha sons alone, for the life I never imagined I'd have. News from the Bloodstone Pack continued to filter through trading contacts and travelers. Octavia's pregnancy was progressing normally. She was now 5 months along and quite public about her condition. She held court daily, accepting congratulations and gifts for the heir she carried. Marcus was reportedly attentive, and the pack was optimistic about the future. Let them be optimistic. They had no idea what was coming. At 5.5 months pregnant, I went into labor. It was early, even by the accelerated timeline, but the healers assured me it was natural. The twins were ready to be born. The labor lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of agony that rewrote my understanding of pain. But when Cornelia placed the first baby in my arms, a screaming, perfect boy with a shock of black hair and storm-gray eyes exactly like his father's, every second of suffering became worth it. He's an alpha, Cornelia breathed in awe. I can feel it radiating from him. Minutes later, the second twin arrived. Another boy, identical to his brother in every way except for the small crescent-shaped birthmark on his left shoulder blade. The mark of the moon goddess herself. They're perfect, I whispered, cradling both sons against my chest. Absolutely perfect. What will you name them? Cornelia asked softly. I looked down at my sons, these tiny powerful beings who would one day shake the foundations of the Bloodstone Pack. Names held power in wolf culture. Names shape destiny. Lucius, I said, touching the firstborn's cheek. Lucius Aurelius. Strong light-bringer. Then I touched the second twin, the one marked by the goddess. And Remus. Remus Aurelius. For the wolf who nursed the founders of Rome. Lucius and Remus. My sons. Marcus's sons, though he would never know it. The true heirs. Hidden away in the mountains while a false heir grew in Octavia's womb. The first 3 months of their lives passed in a blur of sleepless nights and fierce maternal devotion. The twins grew at that same accelerated rate, walking at 6 weeks, speaking simple words at 8 weeks, showing signs of their wolf by 3 months. Cornelia had never seen anything like it. They're developing at triple the normal rate, she reported to Titus during one of his visits to check on us. At this pace, they'll have the physical and mental capacity of 5-year-olds by their first birthday. Titus watched Lucius and Remus toddle around the cabin, their identical faces serious as they explored their world. "Dangerous," he murmured. "Alpha power in bodies too young to control it. Have there been any incidents?" "Small ones," I admitted. "Yesterday, Remus threw a tantrum and accidentally used Alpha command on one of the guards. The poor man couldn't move for 10 minutes. And Lucius," he sighed. "Lucius has been testing dominance with every wolf he meets. He's 3 months old and already trying to establish pack hierarchy. They need training," Titus decided. "Proper training before they hurt someone. I'll assign my best warriors to work with them." "They're babies. They're alphas," Titus interrupted firmly. "And alphas are never really children. They're future pack leaders from the moment they take their first breath. These boys even more so, given the prophecy. Better they learn control now than discover their power through tragedy later." He wasn't wrong. As much as I wanted to protect my sons from the harsh realities of our world, they weren't normal children. They were weapons waiting to be wielded. By me, by fate, by themselves. The question was whether I could shape them into men worthy of their power, or whether that power would corrupt them. Word of the twins' existence remained contained within Frost Peak Pack. Titus's wolves were loyal and close-mouthed, understanding that harboring the exiled second Luna and her miracle twins was dangerous for everyone involved. But secrets have a way of spreading, especially secrets involving prophecy and hidden heirs. The first sign of trouble came when Lucius and Remus were 6 months old, physically and mentally equivalent to 3-year-old human children. A messenger arrived from neutral territory, bearing a sealed letter addressed to me. The seal was unfamiliar, but something about it made my blood run cold. I opened it with trembling hands. The letter read, "Kasha, I know about your sons. I know what they are, what they represent. You cannot hide them forever. Octavia grows more powerful daily, and her son, yes, she bore a son 3 weeks ago, is being groomed as the next Alpha King. Your twins threaten everything she's built. But I'm not writing to threaten you. I'm writing to offer alliance. There are those of us within the Bloodstone Pack who remember the old ways, who believe in fated mate bonds over political convenience. We remember you, Kasha. We remember how Marcus was before Octavia's poison infected his mind. When the time comes, and it will come, we will stand with your sons. But you must be patient. You must wait for the right moment. Striking too soon will only get them killed. Trust no one outside Frost Peak. Octavia has spies everywhere. A friend in the shadows." I read the letter 3 times, analyzing every word, every implication. Someone inside the Bloodstone Pack knew about Lucius and Remus. Someone was gathering resistance against Octavia. And someone was telling me to wait. But waiting meant watching my sons grow up in exile. Waiting meant allowing Marcus's legitimate heir, Octavia's son, to solidify his claim to the throne. Waiting meant years, possibly decades, before my boys could claim their birthright. Could I wait that long? Could they? I brought the letter to Titus, who read it with his ancient, calculating eyes. "This could be genuine," he said slowly. "Or it could be bait. Octavia trying to draw you out, to confirm your son's existence. What do I do? Nothing. Exactly as the letter suggests." Titus handed it back to me. "Your sons are safe here, protected, growing strong. Give them time to develop not just physically but mentally and emotionally. Let them become men before you unleash them on the Bloodstone Pack. Patience is a weapon, Kasha. Learn to wield it." So I waited. Months became a year, then 2. Lucius and Remus grew from toddlers into young boys with sharp minds and sharper instincts. They trained with Frost Peak's warriors, learning combat and strategy and the 100 subtle skills required to lead a pack. They studied history and law and politics under my tutelage, absorbing knowledge like sponges. And they asked about their father. Why did he cast us out? Lucius demanded one evening. His 7-year-old body containing the mind of a young teenager and the power of a full alpha. Why doesn't he want us? How did I answer that? How did I explain betrayal and politics and weakness to children who deserved better? Your father doesn't know you exist, I said carefully. The bond between us was severed before I could tell him about you. He thinks I was barren, that I failed in my duty to provide heirs. But we're right here, Remus protested, his hand unconsciously touching the crescent mark on his shoulder. We're his heirs. We're his sons. Why don't we just go tell him? Because the woman he chose over us would kill you the moment she learned you existed, I said bluntly. They were old enough for truth. Octavia, your father's first Luna, she has her own son now. A boy named Augustus, who she's raising to be the next Alpha King. You two threaten that plan. You're older, stronger, and you have the rightful claim through fated mate bond. She would see you dead before she'd let you take what she believes belongs to Augustus. Then we fight her, Lucius said with the casual certainty of someone who'd never lost a battle. We challenge her, we win, we take our place. It's not that simple. Why not? His gray eyes, Marcus's eyes, blazed with frustration. We're alphas. We're strong. We could take the Bloodstone pack easily. Strength without wisdom is just violence, I quoted one of Titus's lessons. You're not ready. Not yet. When will we be ready? Remus asked quietly. Where Lucius was fire and aggression, Remus was water and patience. Different approaches to the same goal, reclaiming their birthright. I don't know, I admitted. But you'll know. When the time comes, you'll know. 2 more years passed. The twins reached their 4th birthday. Physically 16 years old, mentally mature beyond their accelerated years. They stood 6 feet tall, their bodies honed by constant training, their power so intense that even Titus's veteran warriors hesitated to spar with them. News from the Bloodstone pack painted a troubling picture. Octavia had consolidated her power completely. She sat as equal to Marcus in all but name, making decisions that he simply approved without question. Her son, Augustus, was being raised as a prince, spoiled and celebrated while learning none of the discipline or strength required to actually lead. And Marcus had changed. Reports described him as withdrawn, emotionally distant, going through the motions of leadership without the passion that once defined him. Some whispered that severing a fated mate bond had damaged him more than anyone anticipated. Others said Octavia kept him docile with subtle poisons or dark magic. I didn't know what to believe. The man I'd loved seemed like a ghost, a memory of someone who no longer existed. Mother. Lucius approached me one morning, Remus at his side as always. They moved with identical grace, 2 halves of a whole, perfectly synchronized. We've made a decision. My heart sank. I knew that tone. What decision? We're going to the Bloodstone pack, Remus said calmly. Not to challenge or fight. To observe. To understand what we're dealing with. Absolutely not. We're not asking permission, Lucius interrupted, his alpha command leaking through despite his best efforts to contain it. We're telling you out of respect. We're going, Mother. With or without your blessing. They were 16 in body, 20 in mind, and alphas in power. I couldn't stop them, couldn't command them, couldn't protect them from their own destinies. This was the moment Helena had warned about 4 years ago, when the twins would choose their own path. If you're going, I said, swallowing my fear, then you do it smart. You don't announce yourselves. You don't confront Marcus or Octavia. You observe, you learn, and you come back. Understood. Understood, they chorused. And you take backup. I stood, moving to the cabinet where I'd kept Helena's gifts all these years. The vial of Moon's tears was long empty, but there were other items. Amulets of protection, charms of concealment, tokens from the resistance network. You'll need these. And you'll need contacts. I spent the next hour giving them every scrap of information I had about the underground resistance, about safe houses, about wolves within the Bloodstone pack who might help them. It wasn't much, but it was all I could offer besides my blessing and my terror. They left at dawn the next morning, 2 young men setting out to claim a throne they'd never seen, in a pack that believed them dead or never born. I watched them disappear into the mountain passes and felt prophecy unfold around us like inevitable wings. 3 weeks passed with no word. 3 weeks of pacing and praying and trying not to imagine every terrible possibility. Titus checked on me daily, offering comfort that rang hollow. We both knew the risks. We both understood that sending 2 unknown alphas into Octavia's territory was playing with fire. When the messenger finally arrived, it wasn't from the twins. It was from Marcus. The letter bore his personal seal, the wolf's head crest I'd once known so intimately. My hands shook as I broke the wax and unfolded the parchment. His handwriting hadn't changed. Strong, bold strokes that revealed nothing and everything. The letter read, "Kasia, I know you're alive. I know you're in Frost Peak territory. And I know you've hidden something from me. Something critical. 2 young alphas appeared in my territory 3 weeks ago, claiming to be traveling warriors seeking to test themselves. They were skilled enough that I allowed them to train with my elite guard. They were intelligent enough that I invited them to dine in the palace. And they were familiar enough that I couldn't stop staring at them, trying to understand why. Octavia noticed, of course. She's had them followed, investigated. Her spies reported back that they've been asking questions. About you, about our bonding, about the circumstances of your exile. Kasia, who are they? I severed our bond 4 years ago. I cast you out because I believed you barren, because pack law demanded heirs and you provided none. But these boys, these powerful young alphas with my eyes and your determination. Who are they? Tell me the truth. For once, just tell me the truth. Marcus. He knew. He didn't understand yet, didn't have confirmation, but his instincts were screaming at him. The biological connection that the bond severance couldn't completely erase was pulling at him, making him question everything. This was the moment. Could lie, could deny, could buy more time. Or I could detonate the truth like a bomb and let the pieces fall where they would. Chose truth. I wrote back. Marcus, they are Lucius and Remus Aurelius. Your sons. The twins I carried in my womb when you severed our bond and cast me into exile. I was 12 weeks pregnant when you declared me barren. I was 17 weeks pregnant when you exiled me as a rogue. I gave birth to them in Frost Peak Pack territory 6 months after you decided I was worthless. They are the true heirs to your throne, born of a fated mate bond, marked by prophecy, more powerful than any alpha born in 3 centuries. And you threw us away because Octavia whispered poison in your ear and you were too weak to resist. They're not there to claim anything. Not yet. They're there to see the pack they should have inherited, to meet the father who rejected them, to understand exactly what was stolen from them. You want truth. Here it is. You destroyed our bond for nothing. You exiled your true mate for a lie. And your sons, your real sons, not the spoiled prince Octavia is raising, are everything you needed and more. But they're mine now. I raised them. I protected them. I taught them honor and strength and everything you used to be before you became Octavia's puppet. Don't try to find us. Don't try to claim them. You made your choice 4 years ago. Live with it. Kasia. I sent the letter with one of Titus's fastest messengers, along with explicit instructions to deliver it directly to Marcus's hand and no one else's. Then I waited for the fallout. Came within hours. Lucius and Remus burst into my cabin, moving with the urgent speed of wolves fleeing danger. Their clothes were torn, their faces cut and bruised but already healing. Behind them I could hear shouting, the sounds of pursuit. What happened? I demanded, pulling them inside and barring the door. Octavia tried to have us killed, Lucius panted. The moment Marcus received your letter, and mother, he read it in open court in front of everyone, she went insane. Started screaming about bastards and threats and false heirs. Marcus tried to calm her, tried to get her to stop, but she was beyond reason. She sent her personal guard after us, Remus continued. 20 wolves, all loyal to her, all commanded to eliminate the threat to Augustus's inheritance. We fought our way out, but they're right behind us. The door exploded inward. Not Octavia's guards, Marcus himself, flanked by 6 of his elite warriors. He'd shifted to human form but radiated such raw alpha power that my knees nearly buckled. 4 years hadn't diminished him. If anything, he seemed stronger, more dangerous, more desperate. His eyes locked onto Lucius and Remus, and I watched recognition slam into him like a physical blow. No one could look at them and not see the resemblance. They were him, duplicated and refined, the best of what we'd created together. "My sons," Marcus breathed, and the words came out broken. "You're my sons." "We're nothing to you," Lucius snarled, stepping protectively in front of me. "You gave up any claim to us when you exiled our mother for the crime of carrying your heirs." Marcus flinched. "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," Remus cut in, his voice colder than his brother's rage. "You chose political convenience over your fated mate. You chose Octavia's lies over truth. You chose power over love. Don't pretend ignorance excuses any of that." "You're right." Marcus's admission shocked us all. He took a step forward, hands raised in surrender. "You're absolutely right. I was weak. I let Octavia manipulate me, let pack politics blind me, let my own ambition destroy the most important bond I'll ever have. I severed a fated mate bond, Kasia. Do you know what that's done to me? It's like walking around with half my soul missing, with a wound that never heals." "Good," I said coldly. "You deserve that pain. You deserve to feel every second of what you put me through." "I know." He looked at me now, really looked at me, and I saw the devastation in those storm-gray eyes. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I can't undo what I've done. But Kasia, they're my sons. Our sons. Prophecy or not, power or not, they're ours. Don't I at least have the right to know them?" Before I could answer, before anyone could move, another figure appeared in the doorway. Octavia, dressed in full lunar regalia, surrounded by her personal guard. Her face was a mask of cold fury, her power crackling around her like lightning. "How touching," she spat. The failed Luna and her bastard sons, revealed at last. "Marcus, step away from them. They're rogues and threats to pack security. Pack law demands their execution." "Pack law demands no such thing," Marcus growled, his alpha command clashing against hers. "These are my sons, Octavia. My blood heirs. Legitimate by every law that matters." "They're the products of a severed bond," Octavia countered. "The bond was broken before they were born, which makes them legally fatherless. Rogues. And rogues on pack territory can be eliminated on sight." She was twisting the law, but cleverly. The precedent she cited was obscure but technically valid. If the courts upheld her interpretation, Lucius and Remus would have no legal protection, no claim to the throne, no rights as Marcus's sons. "I won't let you harm them," Marcus said firmly, placing himself between Octavia and the twins. "Not for politics, not for power, not for anything. They're under my protection." "Your protection means nothing," Octavia hissed. "I am First Luna, mother of the heir, and I have the backing of 7 allied packs who've invested in Augustus's future. You protect these bastards, and you'll start a civil war." The truth of her threat hung in the air. She'd spent 4 years building alliances, making promises, positioning Augustus as the future of the Bloodstone Pack. The political consequences of legitimizing Lucius and Remus would be catastrophic. Allied packs would feel betrayed, deals would collapse, and the pack would split between those loyal to Octavia and those loyal to Marcus. "Then we have civil war," Marcus said quietly. "I won't sacrifice my sons for political stability. Not again." "How noble," Octavia sneered. "You'll destroy the pack rather than admit your mistake. You'll..." "Enough." The command didn't come from Marcus or Octavia. It came from Remus, his voice amplified by alpha power so profound it forced every wolf in the room, including Marcus and Octavia, to their knees in submission. Even I felt the pressure, the overwhelming urge to bow before superior authority. Remus stood tall, the crescent mark on his shoulder visible through his torn shirt, glowing with silver light. The moon goddess's blessing, activated by extreme emotion or divine will. When he spoke again, his voice carried not just his power, but something older, something beyond mortal understanding. The prophecy was clear, Remus said, and I realized he wasn't entirely in control anymore. Something else spoke through him, the goddess herself perhaps, or the weight of destiny finally manifesting. Twin sons of a severed bond, born in exile, raised in shadow. They return when the false Luna's power rises, and in their choice shall the kingdom's fate reside. He turned to Marcus, and the glow faded slightly, returning control to my son. You want to know us, father? You want to claim us after 4 years of abandonment? Then prove it. Prove you've learned something. Prove you're not still the weak alpha who sacrificed everything for power. How? Marcus asked, still on his knees, humbled before his own son. Reject Octavia, Lucius said, stepping forward to stand with his twin. Publicly. The same way you rejected our mother. Sever the political bond, strip her of Luna status, and face the consequences. If you're willing to risk civil war for US, prove it. Show us you choose truth over convenience this time. It was an impossible demand. Rejecting Octavia would trigger exactly the civil war she'd threatened, would destabilize the pack, would potentially cost Marcus his throne. But it was also the only way to prove he'd changed, that he meant what he said about protecting his true sons. Marcus looked at Octavia, at the woman who'd shared his throne and his bed for 4 years. The woman who'd given him a son, made alliances, strengthened the pack's position. The woman who'd also manipulated him, poisoned his judgment, and tried to murder his true heirs. Then he looked at me, at the mate he'd betrayed, and at the sons he'd never known existed. The choice hung in the balance. I, Marcus Aurelius, Alpha King of the Bloodstone Pack, he said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of formal decree. Hereby reject Octavia of the Silver Crest Pack as First Luna. By my authority as Alpha King, I sever all political bonds, all mating claims, and all rights of rule. She is no longer Luna. She is no longer Pack. Effective immediately. The power of the decree rippled outward like a shockwave. Octavia screamed, the sound inhuman, as her carefully constructed position shattered. Her guards looked uncertain. Their loyalty was to the Luna, but which Luna? The one being cast out, or the one who'd just been vindicated? You'll regret this, Octavia snarled at Marcus. My father will hear of this. The Silver Crest Pack will consider this an act of war. Your allied packs will abandon you. And Augustus, my son, your legitimate heir by all legal standards, will be raised knowing his father chose bastards over him. Augustus is innocent in this, Marcus said firmly. He's my son and I'll support him. But not at the cost of Lucius and Remus. Not anymore. Octavia's laugh was bitter and broken. You've doomed us all. When the civil war comes, when the pack splits and wolves die by the hundreds, remember that you chose this. You chose her, she pointed at me with venom, and her mongrel twins over stability and peace. She fled then, her remaining loyal guards surrounding her as she retreated from the cabin. Within hours, she'd be back at the palace, gathering her supporters, preparing for war. This wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. Marcus stood slowly, released from Remus's alpha command now that the crisis point had passed. He looked exhausted, aged, as if rejecting Octavia had cost him years of his life. I know that wasn't enough, he said quietly, addressing all 3 of us. I know rejecting her doesn't undo 4 years of mistakes, doesn't heal the bonds I severed or repair the damage I caused. But it's a start. It's proof that I'm willing to fight for what matters this time. We'll see, Lucius said, still guarded, still protective. Words are easy. Let's see how you handle the consequences. The consequences came swiftly and brutally. Within 24 hours, 3 of the Bloodstone Pack's major allies, including the Silver Crest Pack, formally withdrew their support. They cited breach of political contract, instability in leadership, and the dangerous precedent of legitimizing children from a severed bond. Within a week, Octavia had gathered a faction of wolves loyal to her and Augustus. They called themselves the True Blood faction, claiming that Augustus was the rightful heir and that Lucius and Remus were abominations born of a broken bond. Nearly 40% of the pack joined them, splitting the Bloodstone pack down the middle. Civil war was coming. The prophecy was unfolding exactly as foretold. The kingdom's fate would be decided by the choice the twins made. Would they claim the throne and unite the pack? Would they step aside and let Augustus rule? Or would they watch it all burn? Revenge for the mother who'd been exiled and the childhood they'd been denied. Marcus worked desperately to hold the pack together. He acknowledged Lucius and Remus publicly as his legitimate heirs, equal in status to Augustus. He tried to negotiate with the True Blood faction, offering compromises and concessions. He reached out to former allies, trying to repair the political damage. But Octavia was relentless. She painted herself as the victim, the faithful Luna cast aside for a disgraced exile and her suspicious twins. She raised Augustus as a symbol of legitimate rule, teaching him to hate his half-brothers and view them as usurpers. She prepared for war with the certainty of someone who believed righteousness was on her side. And through it all, Marcus tried to rebuild what he'd destroyed with me. He visited our cabin daily, attempting awkward conversations with sons who barely knew him. He tried to explain his choices, his failures, his regrets. Lucius met his efforts with cold suspicion. Remus listened with neutral patience but offered no warmth. As for me, I was torn between vindication and grief. I'd been proven right. Marcus had been wrong to exile me, wrong to trust Octavia, wrong about everything. But there was no satisfaction in watching the pack tear itself apart, no joy in the impending bloodshed. "What do we do, Mother?" Remus asked me one evening, 6 weeks after the confrontation. "We came to observe and we've started a war. The prophecy says the kingdom's fate rests on our choice. But what choice? Fight for the throne. Walk away. What does the moon goddess want from us?" I looked at my sons, these powerful prophesied young men who'd been thrust into a conflict not of their making, and realized I didn't have an answer. The prophecy had guided us this far, but the ending remained unwritten. "I think," I said slowly, "that the prophecy doesn't tell you what to choose. Just says that your choice will determine everything. So the question isn't what the moon goddess wants. It's what you want. What kind of pack do you want to lead? What kind of wolves do you want to be? What kind of future do you want to build?" "I want justice," Lucius said fiercely. "For you, for us, for every wrong that was done. I want Octavia to pay for trying to kill us. I want Augustus to understand that his mother's lies cost him everything. And I want our father to remember every day what his weakness destroyed." "I want peace," Remus countered quietly. "I want the pack reunited. I want Augustus to be our brother, not our enemy. I want father to heal from the bond severance. And I want us to move forward, not backward. 2 sons, 2 visions. Justice or peace. Revenge or reconciliation. The choice that would determine the kingdom's fate." Before either could continue, a runner burst into the cabin. "The True Blood faction is attacking," he gasped. "Octavia's army. They're marching on the palace. Hundreds of wolves. They're calling it liberation, claiming they're rescuing Augustus from his father's tyranny." This was it. The moment prophecy had been building toward. The choice that Lucius and Remus would have to make. Now, not in some distant future, but in the next hour. "We have to fight," Lucius said immediately, already moving toward his weapons. "Father's forces are outnumbered. If we don't help. If we fight, wolves die," Remus interrupted. "Our packmates, killing each other over politics and pride. There has to be another way." "There isn't," Marcus said, appearing in the doorway with his elite guard. He was dressed for battle, armored and armed, every inch the Alpha King I'd once loved. "Octavia won't stop until she controls the pack completely. This isn't about Augustus's claim anymore. It's about power, and she'll burn everything to get it." "Then we challenge her," I heard myself say. "Not an army against an army. One-on-one. Alpha challenge the old way. Winner takes the pack, loser submits or dies. Everyone turned to stare at me. You can't challenge her, Marcus said. You're not pack anymore. But they are, I said, gesturing to Lucius and Remus. They're acknowledged heirs, legitimate pack members by your own decree. They have every right to issue alpha challenge to anyone threatening pack stability, including Octavia. It was risky. Alpha challenges were to the death or submission. No mercy, no quarter. But it was also fair. One fight, winner determined by strength and skill alone, rather than hundreds of wolves dying in civil war. I'll do it, both twins said simultaneously, then looked at each other. No, Lucius argued. I'm the stronger fighter. And I have the goddess's mark, Remus countered. Her blessing might make the difference. Both of you, Marcus interrupted. Challenge her together. Twin alphas against one. It's unorthodox, but so is everything about this situation. She chose this war. Let her face the consequences. The message was sent to Octavia's advancing army. The twin heirs, Lucius and Remus Aurelius, formally challenge Octavia for leadership of the Bloodstone Pack. Single combat, neutral ground, witnessed by both factions. Winner takes all. Octavia's response came within the hour. Accepted. But when I win, the twins die and Kasha faces execution for her crimes against the pack. No negotiations. The challenge ground was the same ceremonial arena where Marcus and I had been mated 4 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The stone circle, built for joy and celebration, would now host violence and possibly death. Both factions gathered, careful to maintain separation but close enough to witness. Marcus's loyal wolves on one side, Octavia's true blood faction on the other. Thousands of wolves, the entire pack, assembled to watch prophecy unfold. Lucius and Remus stood in the center of the arena, identical and imposing. Across from them, Octavia had shifted to wolf form, a massive silver beast, larger than most male wolves, radiating alpha power nearly equal to Marcus himself. She'd been hiding her true strength all these years, playing the political Luna while concealing the warrior beneath. The High Elder Septimus, neutral in the conflict, stepped forward to officiate. The challenge is issued and accepted. The terms are clear. Combat to death or submission. The winner claims leadership rights over the Bloodstone Pack. May the moon goddess guide the worthy. Begin. Octavia attacked immediately. No hesitation, no honor. She went straight for Remus, correctly identifying him as the more passive twin, the potential weakness. But Remus wasn't weak. He was strategic. He dodged her lunge, letting Lucius strike from the side, claws raking across her flank. The battle was brutal and breathtaking. Octavia fought with the desperation of someone who had everything to lose. The twins fought with the coordination of wolves who'd trained together since birth, anticipating each other's moves, covering each other's weaknesses. Blood stained the stone. Octavia wounded Lucius badly, her teeth tearing into his shoulder. Lucius returned the favor, his claws finding her throat. Remus used his speed to harry her from all sides, never letting her focus, never letting her catch her breath. But she was strong, so strong. Years of hiding her power had made people underestimate her. But here now, she revealed herself as one of the most dangerous alphas alive. She fought with intelligence and savagery, using every trick and technique accumulated over centuries. The fight stretched on for 30 minutes. Both twins were bleeding heavily. Octavia was limping, one eye swollen shut. But none of them would quit, none of them would submit. Then Remus's mark began to glow. The crescent on his shoulder blazed with silver light, just as it had during the confrontation at the cabin. The moon goddess, intervening once again. Power flooded through both twins. Not just Remus, but Lucius too, connected to his brother by blood and destiny. They moved faster, hit harder, their coordination becoming supernatural. This was what the prophecy meant. Twin sons, together, blessed by the goddess herself. Octavia realized she'd lost a moment before it happened. Her eyes, one blue, one now swollen shut, widened with understanding and fear. The twins struck simultaneously, perfectly synchronized. Lucius at her throat, Remus at her spine. Not killing blows, but submission holds, forcing her down, forcing her to yield. "Submit," Lucius growled, his jaws locked around her throat. "Submit or die." For a long moment, Octavia remained rigid, pride warring with survival instinct. Then slowly she went limp. Submission. The universal signal of defeat. The twins released her immediately, stepping back. Octavia shifted to human form, naked and bleeding and broken in spirit if not body. She looked at Marcus with hatred so pure it was almost tangible. "This isn't over," she whispered. "Augustus is still your son, still your heir. You can give these bastards the throne, but I'll raise my boy to take it back. 20 years, 30 years, it doesn't matter. This war will continue through our children." She was right and everyone knew it. The challenge had been won, but the underlying conflict remained. Augustus was still Marcus's son, still had his own claim. The True Blood faction might have lost their leader, but they hadn't lost their cause. Septimus raised his voice across the arena. "The challenge is decided. Lucius and Remus Aurelius are victorious. By ancient pack law, they claim leadership rights." He paused, looking between the twins and Marcus. "However, the matter of succession remains complex. We have 3 legitimate heirs to the Bloodstone pack: Lucius, Remus, and Augustus. Pack law has no precedent for such a situation." "Then we create new precedent," Remus said, his voice carrying across the assembled wolves. The glow had faded from his mark, but the authority remained. "Augustus is our brother. Half-brother but brother nonetheless. He's innocent in all of this, a child caught in adult conflicts. We won't punish him for his mother's choices." "What are you proposing?" Marcus asked carefully. "A council," Lucius answered, picking up his twin's thought. "Not a single alpha king but 3 co-rulers. Lucius, Remus, and Augustus when he comes of age. We rule together, balance each other, prevent any one voice from becoming tyrannical." The suggestion rippled through both factions. It was unprecedented, radical, possibly unworkable. But it was also a path forward that didn't require more bloodshed. "Augustus is only 4 years old," Octavia protested weakly. "You expect him to rule alongside you. We expect him to grow up knowing he has brothers who value him, not enemies who want him dead," Remus said firmly. "We'll rule as regents until he's old enough to join the council. And you, Octavia, will be allowed to remain in the pack to raise your son, as long as you accept the new order." It was more mercy than she deserved, more grace than she'd shown anyone else. But it was also strategic. Exiling Octavia would only create a martyr, would give the True Blood faction a rallying point. Allowing her to stay, but powerless, would neutralize her while showing the pack that the twins could be magnanimous in victory. "The pack must vote," Septimus declared. "This is too significant a change to decree by challenge alone. All adult wolves, state your position. Do you accept the Council of 3 heirs, or do you demand traditional single alpha rule?" The vote took hours. Each wolf stepped forward, declared their choice, was counted. The tension was suffocating. If the vote failed, if the pack rejected the compromise, civil war would resume immediately. When Septimus finally announced the results, his ancient voice was heavy with emotion. By a margin of 63% to 37%, the pack accepts the Council of 3. Lucius Aurelius, Remus Aurelius, and Augustus Aurelius, when he reaches maturity, shall rule the Bloodstone pack jointly. May the moon goddess guide them. The arena erupted. Some wolves cheered, others protested. Most simply looked exhausted. The civil war was over, but the hard work of healing was just beginning. Marcus approached me as the crowd dispersed, his face showing all 4 years of suffering since he'd severed our bond. "Kasia," he said quietly, "our sons just saved the pack. They showed more wisdom and strength in one day than I've shown in 4 years. That's because of you. Because of how you raised them. Don't, I warned. Don't try to thank me or compliment me. You don't get to take credit for this. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to apologize. Properly, not the half-hearted attempts I've been making. He took a breath. I destroyed the most precious gift the moon goddess ever gave me. I severed a fated mate bond out of weakness and ambition. I exiled you while you carried my sons. I let Octavia poison my judgment for 4 years. I failed you, failed our children, failed the pack, failed myself. Yes, I said simply. You did all of those things. Can you ever forgive me? Question hung between us. Could I? Should I? The bond was gone, but the love. The love was complicated. He was the father of my children, my fated mate despite the severance, the man I'd once planned to spend centuries with. But he was also the man who destroyed me, who'd chosen politics over love, who'd been too weak to resist Octavia's manipulation. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe someday. But Marcus, even if I forgive you, we can't go back. The bond is severed. Can't be remade. We're not mates anymore, not really. We're just two people who created something beautiful together and then destroyed it. I know. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. But can we at least try to be friends? Co-parents. I want to know our sons, Kasia. I want to be part of their lives. Help guide them as they navigate ruling the pack. And I want you to not hate me, even if you can never love me again. Before I could answer, Lucius and Remus joined us. They stood on either side of me, protective and proud, my sons in every way that mattered. We're going to need both of you, Lucius said, addressing us as a unit. Ruling a pack this divided, managing 3 heirs with different mothers and different factions, it's going to be complicated. We'll need father's experience and mother's wisdom. And we need you to be civil to each other, Remus added. Augustus deserves to grow up with all his brothers. That means family dinners, joint decisions, unified leadership. Can you do that? Marcus looked at me. I looked back, seeing the man he'd been and the man he'd become, the mistakes and the attempts at redemption. We can try, I said finally. For our sons we can try. The first year of the Council of 3 was chaos. Lucius and Remus, despite being physically 18, were still young for pack leadership. They made mistakes, clashed with advisors, struggled with the weight of prophecy and expectation. But they also showed flashes of brilliance, implementing reforms that benefited lower-ranked wolves, establishing diplomatic relations with packs that had withdrawn support, slowly rebuilding what civil war had fractured. Augustus, now 5 years old, was brought to live in the palace under joint custody. Octavia was allowed supervised visits but no longer held any official power. The boy was confused at first, caught between his mother's bitterness and his brother's attempts at inclusion. But gradually, he warmed to Lucius and Remus, began to see them not as usurpers but as family. I returned to the palace not as Luna. That title remained empty, a reminder of what had been lost, but as royal mother, advisor to the council, and educator to all 3 heirs. It was strange living in rooms I'd once fled, walking halls where I'd been humiliated. But the twins needed me, and I couldn't abandon them to navigate pack politics alone. Marcus and I maintained careful distance. We attended council meetings together, made joint decisions about the boys' education, presented a united front. But we didn't speak of the past, didn't acknowledge the ghost of our bond that still haunted both of us. Some wounds went too deep for words. Octavia, stripped of power and status, became a shadow in the palace. She focused entirely on Augustus, filling his head with stories of his legitimacy, his superiority, his stolen birthright. The twins tried to counteract her poison, but a mother's influence runs deep. I watched Augustus grow and worried. Would he become an ally to his brothers, or would Octavia's resentment turn him into an enemy? The prophecy had said the twins would bring either salvation or destruction. The challenge had been won, the pack had survived civil war, but the ultimate fate remained uncertain. Everything would depend on how Augustus chose to wield his own power when he came of age. 2 years into the council's rule, Helena visited. She was ancient now, even for a werewolf, her movements slow but her mind sharp. She requested a private meeting with all 3 heirs and both parents, myself, Marcus, and Octavia. We gathered in the same chamber where Marcus had once decreed my exile. The irony of location wasn't lost on anyone. "I'm dying," Helena announced without preamble. "I have perhaps 6 months before my wolf finally gives out. But before I go, I need to tell you something about the prophecy. Something I've held back, waiting for the right moment." "What haven't you told us?" Remus asked, his hand instinctively moving to the crescent mark. Helena's smile was sad. The prophecy wasn't just about Lucius and Remus. It was about all 3 heirs. Julia's full vision included a 3rd son, born to the Alpha King by a different mother, raised in bitterness but destined to choose the pack's ultimate path. Augustus isn't peripheral to the prophecy. He's central to it. The revelation stunned us all. Augustus, who'd been sitting quietly between his brothers, looked up with wide eyes. "Me. I'm part of the prophecy." "You are its fulcrum," Helena confirmed. "Lucius and Remus had to survive exile, had to prove themselves, had to win the challenge. But you, Augustus, will make the final choice. When you come of age, you'll decide whether the Bloodstone Pact becomes a beacon of unity or falls to division. Your brothers brought you to the threshold. You'll determine whether the pact crosses it." Octavia's face went white. "That's not. Augustus is meant to rule alone. He's the legitimate heir." "He's meant to choose," Helena interrupted, "between the path of vengeance his mother has prepared, or the path of unity his brothers offer. That's the prophecy's true test. Not strength or power but choice. Always choice." Augustus looked between Lucius and Remus, then at his mother, then at Marcus and me. 7 years old and being told the fate of thousands rested on his shoulders. It wasn't fair. But then again, none of this had been fair. "I don't want to choose," Augustus said quietly. "I don't want anyone to fight. I just want my brothers to like me and my mother to be happy and everything to be okay." "That's because you're still a child," Remus said gently. "But one day you won't be. And when that day comes, remember this moment. Remember that unity was always an option, that love was always possible." Helena died 4 months later, peacefully in her sleep, her work finally complete. The pack mourned her loss. She'd been a pillar of wisdom for 4 centuries. But her final revelation changed everything. The Council of 3 ruled with Augustus's future choice hanging over them. Lucius pushed for stronger leadership, more decisive action. Remus advocated for patience and diplomacy. And Augustus, as he grew, watched and learned from both, pulled between their different philosophies and his mother's whispered alternatives. Marcus spent his remaining years trying to be the father he'd failed to be earlier. He trained all 3 boys in combat, taught them strategy and history, tried to show them what it meant to lead with honor. He never remarried, never took another Luna. The bond severance had damaged him too deeply for that. I watched my sons grow into young men, Lucius fierce and passionate, Remus calm and strategic, Augustus conflicted and searching. I watched Marcus age with the weight of his mistakes. I watched Octavia's bitterness calcify into something almost tragic. And I wondered whether the prophecy would be fulfilled through salvation or destruction. The answer came on Augustus's 18th birthday. The entire pack gathered for the celebration, a formal ceremony where Augustus would officially join the Council of 3 as a full partner. Lucius and Remus had ruled for 14 years, turning the Bloodstone Pact into one of the most prosperous in the region. But the underlying tension remained. Would Augustus embrace partnership with his brothers, or would he claim sole rule as his mother had always insisted was his right? Augustus stood before the assembled pack, dressed in ceremonial robes, looking so much like Marcus it was startling. He'd inherited his father's height, his presence, his storm-gray eyes. But he'd also inherited something from watching his brothers, their wisdom, their restraint, their commitment to something larger than personal ambition. "I've had 18 years to think about what I'd say today," Augustus began, his voice strong and clear. 18 years of listening to my mother tell me I was robbed, that my brothers were usurpers, that I should take back what's rightfully mine. 18 years of watching Lucius and Remus actually rule, actually lead, actually care for the pack above their own interests. Octavia's face went rigid with horror. She knew what was coming. "I choose unity," Augustus declared. "I choose to stand with my brothers, not against them. I choose the council of 3 over sole rule. And I choose to honor the prophecy by bringing salvation, not destruction." The pack erupted in celebration. Lucius and Remus moved forward, embracing their brother, the 3 of them unified at last. Marcus wept openly. Even I felt tears streaming down my face. Only Octavia remained unmoved, frozen in her seat, watching her life's work crumble. She'd spent 18 years preparing Augustus to hate his brothers, to reclaim his stolen throne. And in one speech, he'd rejected everything she'd taught him. She left the palace that night. No fanfare, no announcement. She simply disappeared into the night, unable to bear witnessing her son's betrayal. Some said she went rogue. Others claimed she'd found sanctuary with distant relatives. A few whispered that she'd taken her own life, unable to live with her failure. I didn't know and honestly didn't care. Octavia had caused enough damage. Her departure was a mercy for everyone, including Augustus. The Council of 3 ruled the Bloodstone Pack for 40 years. Lucius brought passion and strength. Remus brought wisdom and patience. Augustus brought balance and unity. Together they transformed the pack into something greater than it had ever been. A place where fated mate bonds were honored, where political marriages were questioned, where power served the people rather than the other way around. Marcus lived to see his son's success, dying peacefully at the age of 370, finally at rest after decades of carrying the weight of his mistakes. His last words were an apology, to me, to our sons, to the pack. I forgave him at the end. Not because he'd earned it, but because holding on to hatred was exhausting, and he was the father of my children. Some sins could be forgiven even if they could never be forgotten. I lived another century after Marcus's death, watching my sons rule, watching them take mates of their own, watching them raise children who would carry on their legacy. Lucius had 3 daughters who inherited his fire. Remus had 2 sons who inherited his wisdom. Augustus had 1 daughter who inherited the best of all 3 bloodlines. The prophecy had been fulfilled. Twin sons born of a severed bond had returned to the pack that exiled them, and their choice, to embrace unity over vengeance, had brought salvation. But the story didn't end with prophecy fulfilled. It ended with me, an old woman sitting in the same cabin where I'd once given birth in exile, watching the sunset over Frost Peak territory. Titus had died decades ago, but his pack remained strong, still offering sanctuary to those who needed it. Lucius found me there one evening, his face lined with age but still recognizable as the infant I'd held in my arms 50 years ago. He sat beside me in comfortable silence, father of 3, grandfather of 7, co-ruler of one of the most powerful packs in the world. "Do you regret it?" he asked finally. "Everything that happened, being exiled, raising us alone, all the years of struggle." I thought about the question. Did I regret loving Marcus? Being cast out? Fighting to protect my sons? Watching them claim their destiny? No, I said honestly. It was painful, devastating, often unbearable, but it led to you and Remus. It led to Augustus choosing unity. It led to a better pack, a better future. How could I regret that? Even though you and father never reconciled. Even though the bond was severed and you were alone. I was never alone, I corrected gently. I had you and your brother. That was enough. Lucius took my hand, his grip warm and strong. You were the greatest Luna the Bloodstone Pack never fully appreciated. You should have ruled beside father. You should have been celebrated, not exiled. Should halves are poison, I said, quoting something Helena had once told me. I lived the life I was given, not the life I wanted. And it turned out to be pretty magnificent anyway. We sat in silence as the sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In the distance, I could hear wolves howling, not in mourning or warning, but in joy. Pack was whole. The prophecy was fulfilled. My sons were safe and thriving. And I, Cassia Valentina, exiled second Luna turned royal mother, could finally rest. They laughed as I was exiled, thinking they'd won. They mocked my failure, celebrated my downfall, erased me from Pack history. But the twins I carried became the heirs who didn't destroy his Luna. They transcended her, transformed her bitterness into a footnote, her power into a memory. They brought something she never could: unity born from adversity, strength tempered by mercy, power wielded with wisdom. Octavia wanted to destroy me. Instead, my sons rebuilt everything she broke. Marcus wanted an heir. He got 3 and learned too late that prophecy doesn't care about politics. The Pack wanted stability. They got revolution wrapped in tradition, change disguised as continuity. And I wanted justice. But I got something better. I got peace. Not the peace of revenge fulfilled, but the peace of watching my sons become better than their circumstances, stronger than their pain, wiser than their parents. The prophecy said they would bring salvation or destruction. What it didn't say was that salvation would look like this: 3 brothers ruling together, a Pack healed from civil war, a future built on choice rather than fate. As I took my last breath, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, I finally understood what Helena had been trying to tell me all those years ago. The prophecy wasn't about the twins destroying Octavia's power. It was about my sons proving that love, complicated, painful, tested love, was stronger than politics, stronger than betrayal, stronger than even a severed fated mate bond.